How you doing? I'm Big D. Welcome to the show. My disclaimer is I am not a doctor, but what I want to discuss is the Cliff Note version of the Living Medical podcast with Celine Van Orden and her guest, the famous Dr. Bryan Ardis, talking about salt. And these details I can guarantee you probably have never heard. Unless you follow Dr. Ardis and already have viewed this podcast. I have used Dr. Ardis for details he has talked about and helped with my own diagnosis through my own doctors. Things that most likely never have been heard for and by any other doctor. I think you're going to be glad you watched till the end. But also, with those details from Dr. Ardis, I have changed a lot of things in my life. And for that reason only, I am very grateful for someone like Dr. Ardis and finally stepping up and talking about the pharmaceutical industry, medications that are supposedly FDA approved and good for our health, and they've had us on their mind when they approve these things, because the Food and Drug Administration, well, you're supposed to believe that they are on our side and not there to hurt us, especially not intentionally, but you're going to have to determine that. Again, this is a Cliff Note version of what you're going to find in the description below. I'm going to leave a link. And if you want the full details, because some of the things I could not just, keep rambling on about, but you're going to want to probably go back and watch that. But at least this will give you some details that there's no way unless you, like I said, you follow Dr. Ardis. So, is too much salt bad for you? Is it bad for you, the amount of salt that the FDA and the American Heart Association has portrayed on us? Have they lied to us? You're going to have to make that decision. Now, when you visit a friend in the hospital, a relative, someone, what do you see hanging from the pole on wheels? It's usually a bag of saline, or they call it fluids, or they might call it, they're not going to call it salt water, which it is, and you're going to see what I'm talking about. Why not call it what it is exactly? It's salt water. It's a specific type of salt water. But if you have a heart attack and the ambulance comes to save you before a doctor ever sees you, they determine a protocol that is going to treat you, again, before you even see a doctor. Thinking about this, say you have a heart attack, and the very first thing they want to do is pump you full of this saline or fluids. The ambulance tech will start an IV and fill your veins full of this saline. It's a bag of salt water. In that bag of salt water, there's 9,000 milligrams of salt, along with the water, which, as far as the FDA has stated, this would be about 8 times, and we'll get into what FDA has stated in the amount of milligrams per day. 8 times what the FDA has recommended in a 24-hour period. Now, I'm going to remind you, This is what has been told to us, to stay away from salt, or at least go in moderation. But you're going to find out that the recommendation is very low. The professionals push the statement that salt is bad for us. That's all we've heard for the life of as long as we've been on this earth. You've heard it from your family and your friends. Stop, it's too much salt. Because it causes strokes and heart attacks. But if you are unlucky one and have a heart attack, before even seeing a doctor in an ambulance, paramedic starts a bag of saline, salt water, pumping into your veins. Confused yet? Stay with me. There's so much more. To me, this has been propaganda. And in future shows, I'm going to spill the details. And if you're not blown away yet, by the end of this, you're probably going to be. Unless maybe you're dead inside. I'm not sure. So in 2016, Tel Aviv and Israel conducted a study of 500,000 patients in 49 countries, the largest study ever done on high blood pressure. And in these 49 countries, 500,000 people, the people that consumed the most salt every single day had the best blood pressure readings and the most normal blood pressure readings. And all the individuals that consumed 3 times the FDA requirements had better blood pressure readings than the other individuals in the study. They pushed the study in the Lancet. They made it public in this medical journal called the Lancet. This is in the UK. That more salt an individual consumes, the better their blood pressure readings are. And also, the lower the risk of stroke and heart attack. Who benefits from this lie? That salt is bad for you. When this study was published in the medical journal of Lancet, the American Heart Association threatened to pull the Lancet's funding if they didn't retract the study. Why would the Heart Association be angry at a medical journal for publishing a study that provides and proves salt is not only needed, it should be increased for better heart health and lessens the chance of stroke? Why is that study a threat to the Heart Association? The Heart Association is the highest revenuing association in the world. 90% of all Heart Association funding comes from the pharmaceutical industries. So if most of their funding comes from the pharmaceutical companies that manufactures and pushes something like a crack dealer on the corner for blood pressure medications, heart and stroke medications maybe, and other, they will of course look at this study as a threat. Makes sense. If pharmaceutical companies are footing the bill. Now, these pharmaceutical companies actually care about you. People wouldn't they just start patients with a regimen of salt first? Do any of the companies own salt companies? Highly impossible, but then I would say, no way are they going to tell you the truth about the salt study or want the salt study go public. Do you think we can trust even the doctors any longer? They must know. they push the propaganda that too much salt is bad for you. But then the very first thing before seeing a doctor, when you're having a heart attack in an ambulance, they push the 9,000 milligrams of saline every 20 minutes before even seeing a doctor. Isn't that incredible? When you go to the doctor for your yearly physical and your nurse performs a blood pressure test and she says your blood pressure is elevated, it's highly possible you are low on salt. But your doctor will prescribe blood pressure medications, sometimes more than one medication. And you will need to start the medication and come back every so often to be checked to see if you need a higher dose. Also, to see if it's working. They may to increase this several times over a year period, even. It's a vicious cycle. The FDA recommends no more than 2,300 milligrams in a 24-hour period. What does the American Heart Association say? Recommended milligrams per 24 hours. They only call for 1,100 milligrams of sodium per day, salt. How is it the FDA has a totally different view than the American Heart Association? So the American Heart Association is less than half of what the FDA recommendations are. Odd, even two major organizations can't agree on the recommended daily milligrams of salt. Now, the University of Tel Aviv study recommends that the lowest amount of salt in a 24-hour period to keep your blood pressure at an optimal level, and recommends this study, which had 500,000 people in 49 countries. Their recommendations for a daily intake of salt was between 6,000 and 9,000 milligrams per individual. Using 9,000 milligrams on average was better than the individual using 6,000 milligrams. How much salt is in every saline bag that they pump into your veins if you're in an ambulance for a heart attack? The paramedic just immediately, remember, not even a contact of a doctor. Their protocol is to pump this fluid, these fluids. That's what they call it. They call it fluids. Saline, whatever you want to call it. I mean, you've heard it a couple different ways. I'm sure maybe even others, depending on what country you're listening from. No doctor has access to your condition yet. The American Heart Association says salt in higher amounts than 1,100 milligrams is not good for you because of a heart condition or possible stroke. But you're being pumped full of this salt water while having a heart attack. In a very short time on your way to the hospital, 9,000 milligrams. Does this make any sense yet? Next point I want to make. Animals. Animal farmers. Everywhere uses a large block of salt called a salt lick, so their animals can get enough salt in their diets. The farmer does not restrict the amount of salt in each animal or what each animal consumes. All mammals need salt to survive. Now, a pharmaceutical company developed drugs that lower blood pressure, like diuretics, Lasix, as an example. These are actually patented salt. It's a specific salt pill. Let's call it that. Let's call it what it is. It's a special form of salt, but nonetheless, they are salt. The package them with a special name like diuretics and Lasix. They even patented the drug, even though they do some damage to the human body. They make your kidneys create an effect in the body to make your body urinate. Remember? Salt does that too. But because the diuretics aren't a natural substance, they will cause your kidneys to shut down. And we'll have to keep increasing the Lasix and diuretics to keep the effect in the proper swing. But you don't have to do that with salt, because that's a natural substance. 1981, drug companies came out with a new drug, which are ACE inhibitors. Captopril, which binds to your blood vessels and lowers blood pressure. You may be already on some ACE inhibitors yourself, made from the same thing. Lisinopril is high on the list. Enalapril. And the way Dr. Bryan Ardis talks, that if it ends with pril, it is possibly an ACE inhibitor. So you might want to check into that. Now, these are made from venom from a snake in Brazil called a Dracus viper. The component in the venom is a neurotoxin. These Lasix and diuretics over time cause kidney failure. Again, this is something, if you wanted to see the complete podcast with Dr. Bryan Ardis discussing this, the link will be in the description below. Now, in 1956, this is why I like Dr. Ardis. He doesn't just make blank statements. He brings the backup, and he gives you proof where you can find these details. In 1956, a couple of doctor researchers, which found if you use snake venom in a human body, cancer is probability. Dr. Ardis says it will happen. I'm going to use the word probability. Epidermal growth factors is what these doctors called it. The doctor said all types of cancers can be created inside of the human body because of the snake venom. The drug companies known it caused cancer. And I would have to take it one step further. The FDA knows it causes cancer because they are the police of America, to make sure Americans are safe to eat the food and drugs we have available in America. So they must know. They have to know. Just a reminder, FDA stands for Food and Drug Administration. They're supposedly there for us, to protect us. It's their job to know. They approve or deny food and drugs on a regular basis. The research doctors were given Nobel Prize in Medicine for their discovery in 1986 for discovering that if you give a human snake venom, it will cause cancer in every tissue of the human body. Well, 22 million Americans are prescribed these types of drugs every day. They take it every day. They're not prescribed it. They're taking this every day. 22 million Americans. What about around the world. Now, they swallowed snake venom to lower blood pressure. If you type in your favorite search engine, lisinopril, which is an ACE inhibitor, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, those two combined in the same search bar, see what comes up. Study after study. Links of cancer using these lisinopril, enalapril, captopril, hope I'm not mispronouncing that, but I apologize. Like I say, you'll see the link in the description below. This is just the Cliff Note version. Now, these ACE inhibitors, another reason they suppress the real truth of salt, should be to go to lower blood pressure, not the salt, not the drugs. You should use the salt. And he explains this, and we'll get into that as well. Now, if you tell a lie loud enough and often enough, people will believe it. Salt in very low milligrams per day is needed to keep your heart healthy and lessen the chance of strokes. That's all we have heard. All of life, God's animals, need salt to survive and good quality of life. Now, Dr. Ardis recommends telling your doctor to help you get off these drugs, especially when, one, it's a venom, two, getting off of them will lessen your chance of now producing cancers in every tissue of your body. Again, I am not a doctor. This is just things that I removed from the podcast to give you the highlights. I'm someone that believes this type of salt and medication is very important. So that the reason I am outspoken about this topic and others, but you will need doctor supervision going forward to come off of these medications. Dr. Ardis says never stop any drug except cholesterol medications immediately. You have to titrate down, maybe cut it in half, whatever. But he can explain it perfectly if this is something you want to do and your doctor decides you need to stay on these. Maybe doctors are not that smart. Maybe they realize, or maybe they don't realize what you really need, or that salt is beneficial to your body, not the other way around. A lower amount of sodium per day is what is actually causing the damage, not too high of salt. Now, our bodies become dependent and they change our chemistry, these medications. Again, watch the link in the description below, because I wouldn't want you to do something without some type of doctor supervision first. But if you can't get a doctor to help you come off of these medications, the doctor will help you move forward and titrate off of those medications if that's what you would want to do. I know I did. Done. If you want to increase your health, lessen your chance of heart attacks, stroke, cancer ridding your body of these poisons is probably your best option. But that's my opinion. Now, if you want to come off these drugs, your regimen of salt needs to increase slowly as well. as cutting your regimen of these drugs with great chance of they will cause the disease we talked about earlier, meaning the cancers damaging any tissue of the human body. Many types of cancers have been linked to lisinopril. Now, Dr. Ardis is very forthcoming, and when you watch this podcast of Dr. Ardis on this podcast that he's on, it is just amazing how he comes across. And it does nothing about what he states sounds like he's pulling something out of a hat. He uses it in his practices. Let's see. So please follow his instruction to a T. Many different kinds of salt out there. Let's start with this, because you don't just want to jump into table salt. There's so many options of salt out there. General salt on the market have anti-caking agents, other chemicals other than salt that keep the salt from sticking together. They aren't any good for you. Years ago, they removed iodine from table salt, pushing sea salt without iodine altogether, and creating a new disease. It's called hypothyroidism, creating a new drug supply for medications to treat this disease. This disease that attacks your thyroid, it actually shuts it down. The symptoms of chronic fatigue, infertility, menopause, menstrual problems, and I'm sure there's quite a few others. It looks like another setup to me by the drug companies. Salt from nature, from the ocean, glaciers, mountains, Himalayas. This mineral cannot be ignored, and it should not be ignored. In schools, we learn about the periodic table of elements. All the elements in the world that actually contribute to life on Earth. In this table is salt. So we have salt on the table, on the periodic table. We have iodine. We have magnesium, selenium, calcium. All these are essential to life. There's many others. Now, how about lisinopril? Is that on the table? Ozempic? Aspirin? Ibuprofen? How about Lasix? Diuretics? No. They are not essential. But we are believed that these medications are here to help us. But are they? Is snake venom on the periodic table of elements? Going forward, getting salt into your diet is essential and very important to correct the amount of salt and use the salt that is most beneficial to your well-being and your health. Dr. Ardis also talks about consuming bee pollen. Bee pollen has 84 minerals and vitamins. All of the minerals in a periodic table can be found in bee pollen, a natural multivitamin. He also states supplementing iodine meant for human consumption. You probably could find many different options of that as well. But I want to point out, Dr. Ardis also has options on his that he actually sells, and that's what he uses. My consideration is I would highly recommend you use his products over something you might find on Amazon, but that's just my thought. Now, again, this was a podcast by Living Medical Podcast. Celine Van Orden is the interviewer, and Dr. Bryan Ardis is the doctor that I've been talking about. I am definitely going to have more of these Cliff Note versions, so you don't have to sit through an hour plus. But if you want, you definitely will find the link in the description below. Thank you for checking out my podcast. I appreciate it. And if you don't mind, hit that like button, leave a comment. And if you believe that this is something that could benefit somebody, please share it. Have a great day. God bless.